MageTalk is brought to you by Mojo Stratus. Stratus is true cloud auto-scaling technology for Magento. Built by industry leaders and cloud architects, Stratus is a revolution in cloud hosting. Magento 2? No problem. Holidays? Flash sales? No problem. 100% uptime or your money back. Give Stratus a try today, risk-free, and tell them MageTalk sent you. Check them out today at magemojo.com. That's magemojo.com. MageTalk is brought to you by Vertex, the leader of tax technology solutions and services for corporations worldwide. They're a Magento premier partner trusted by over half of the Fortune 500. Vertex Cloud meets the sales and use tax needs for businesses of all sizes. Visit them online today at vertexsmb.com.
This podcast is brought to you by Commerce Hero. Better way to find a Magento developer for your next project or full-time hire.
Hello and welcome to MageTalk, the Magento community podcast. I'm Phillip, and today we have a very special guest, someone who shares my name and all of my interests, which is a hard thing to find nowadays. I'm really excited and very stoked to welcome to the show Mr. Phil Hanson from Queueit, North America. Welcome to the show, Phil.
Thanks, Phillip. It's great to be here.
We have a similar name. Do you prefer Phil or Phillip?
Short is good. Phil.
Yeah, Phil. Yeah. That's so interesting. Mm-hmm. We kind of do this whole thing on the show where I correct Kaylin for 4.5 years now on how to say my name, but I'll answer to hey you. Yeah. But for those people who may not know you or may not have heard of you or Queueit, can you give us a little bit of a download on who you are and what Queueit is and why you matter in the Magento world?
Yeah. So I am Phil Hanson and head up our North America operation, really. What Queueit does is provides a virtual waiting room software for high-demand online events. So think of what we're about to talk about today, a sneaker drop, where simply more web traffic is showing up than a site can cope with. Visitors are offloaded to us, and we hold them and then pass them through to the site at a speed it can handle. So every day we're doing this in e-commerce as well as in the ticketing world. You can also imagine that part of the use case in terms of on sales, and then of course what comes with that, nefarious traffic as well, and so some input there as well. But we've been doing this for almost 10 years. The company was originally founded in Copenhagen, Denmark. I worked with the team for a couple of years there before we decided that let's spend some time in the U.S. and get closer to the customers there. Huge market here, obviously. I like to describe that in Copenhagen, your apartment probably doesn't have room to store 25 pairs of sneakers in their original boxes. But we have a different culture here in terms of the things that we collect and the things that we do.
Sure.
And so, and then also even different legislation around secondary markets, whether that is in ticketing or in the e-commerce space. So yeah.
How interesting. Yeah, so it's funny. I've come across Queueit in some form or fashion over the years. Yeah, when buying sneakers or doing things, trying to get tickets. But it's interesting because you got a nice little shout out a couple years back at Magento Imagine when Melissa Ben-Ishai, who's the founder of Baked by Melissa, mentioned you guys on stage at Imagine. And I remember because we had employed at Something Digital, we had employed Queueit on a number of our footwear businesses like Sneaker Villa and some others who were using you at the time to kind of assist with some of those sneaker drop, high volume issues. But we were able to deploy Queueit in a matter of 15 hours or something. Like we had a really tight turnaround to launch a viral social campaign that Baked by Melissa was promoting at the time, which was Side with Love. And they were giving out 1 million cupcakes for free. And they even covered shipping. And it was so easy to set up. And so I've been aware of you guys for a long time. I know that everybody that we've ever introduced you to was so happy with the service. I'm curious sort of what you see in the world and the Magento ecosystem as things sort of change and as the ecosystem changes, we definitely see a big shift in the sneaker strategies. Like they're becoming less of the distributor partner retail sales outlet is participating in the sneaker sale, and a lot of that is being sort of co-opted by the likes of direct to consumer, Adidas and Nike selling direct. I'm curious what your business looks like and like how your customers are looking to you to solve different types of problems nowadays.
Yeah, I think we're seeing that exact trend. The two newest footwear customers of ours are DTC brands, right? So what they're identifying is that they're potentially giving away some of that by distributing it. And so why not bring that to our site and see and remind people actually that we're here and you don't always have to buy us somewhere else, right? I think that's probably what we're seeing there. In terms of those that have been in the Magento space as well, we've seen some consolidation recently that maybe is driving some strength or recouping some strength in that to counter that. But that is a really interesting thing that almost like technology as well. You build your brand, you hopefully are something of a acquisition target, right? If you're doing things the right way. So I think that also kind of speaks to how Villa, for instance, and DTLR coming together. Some of these brands recognizing each other's strengths and saying, okay, this is one way that we can continue, to operate together. So,
yeah, that's super interesting. We have such a diverse background with a lot of different types of clients. You've already sort of mentioned, a couple different verticals that work really well for Queueit. Maybe you could sort of talk about, like, I like to think about the way that my passions like overlay into the work that I get to do. Yeah. I'm sure that you've mentioned sneakers already. You're kind of into sneakers. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that and tell us a little bit about how your passions overlay with some of the work that you get to do at Queueit.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the point you're making there. Yeah, my job is pretty easy because I'm really interested in the things that we're servicing. Whether it is, again, in live entertainment, used to play in bands, right? Still, music is a big part of my life, and e-commerce. Maybe having a love for footwear that my wife despises. So I come from a town actually that a smaller town where they still make shoes there. Red Wing Shoe, if you're familiar with that brand.
Oh wow, yeah.
And so early on in life, I guess that shoe was just everywhere in town, and maybe that had something to do with it. But also, growing up, sneakers for me is so much nostalgia, and also hearkening back to one of the sessions you've done previously, kind of talking about why you really have bought into it too. It's like I can finally afford that now. I was raised by a single mother in that small town, got to play sports because there wasn't such a talent depth that actually a short, round kid like myself was able to participate in even something like basketball. But anyway, not being able to afford the newest Jordans, but seeing those on the feet of my peers, also just watching Michael Jordan work his magic when you're a young, impressionable kid as well. It just brings back so much nostalgia. I think even another really funny story around that is Hirachis. So apparently I have a couple of younger folks in the office here who tell me that there's a certain in the hip hop community, there's a certain lyric that would make me probably be made fun of that related to Hirachis, that I'm just like, well, I remember when these came out and it's still really cool to me, and that I can find them in those colors that they were then. And actually, I find out, oh, it fits my foot really well, where this is just an easy shoe for me to get a whole bunch of. let alone catching some flack from a couple of the hip hop fans in the room. But anyway,
you get to a certain age, and I'm starting to realize that there's just no avoiding it. There's going to be a certain generation from now on who's going to find some way to sort of turn it around on you. My 8-year-old already she snatches the remote control out of my hands and tells me I'm too slow in like navigating the TV. And I'm like, it started. This is it. Like it's all downhill from here. That's so funny. That was really my, you had mentioned too about an earlier MageTalk episode we had done. Kaylin had sort of asked me what this whole fascination with footwear had become. And I was trying to dive into how do I make my personal interests and my business opportunities overlap more, more in what I could bring sort of my passion and some of my focus, as a musician or as somebody who loves shoes or something like that. We can sort of bring all those things together. And I just happen to be in a world where through e-commerce, like you said, it is possible where I can sort of seek out brands that I'm authentically engaged with, and it helps us to tell a better story online, and helps us to create a better customer experience, and that's been a real it's been a real bonus in me and my life and my life's work to be able to do that. Writing ebooks or recording podcasts, and but I don't know if you can actually talk about them. What are some of the brands that people might recognize that you work with, or like some global names that Queueit services that you might be able to share a little bit about?
Yeah, I unfortunately can't name those two newest footwear
That's
agreements.
Okay. Yeah. There might be others.
Yeah,
though, right?
Well, what's interesting is so often you can tell it's us on their release, though, right? Like a virtual waiting room popping up and it providing you with information about what that wait is actually going to be, not just some phony 30-second cycle. But in the we mentioned DTLR and Villa, YCMC. Why is that?
Putting you on the spot here.
No. Yeah. I usually just rattle them off. I guess it's Monday morning still here in Minneapolis, but
we can tighten this part up too.
So we've worked on those ones together. Snipes. So Ubeek and Kicks USA, recently acquired by Snipes out of Germany, but we've been helping them for a number of years and doing some interesting studies, deep dives on their traffic as well.
Let's face it, Magento can be a beast to run in the cloud. And that's why Stratus by MageMojo is hosting Evolved. Say goodbye to dedicated DevOps teams and complex cloud architecture. With Stratus, you get a rock-solid architecture that's built on Amazon AWS and true cloud auto-scale. Never worry about capacity planning ever again, with the full power of AWS that's behind your site. Backed by Magento cloud architecture geniuses at MageMojo on technologies like ECS, Kubernetes, Aurora, and also a 15-minute SLA that's the fastest in the entire industry, you can be sure that your site is in good hands with Stratus. Give it a try today, and we know you won't be disappointed. Head over to magemojo.com/MageTalk and get started. That's magemojo.com/MageTalk. Thanks again to MageMojo for the continued support of MageTalk. MageTalk is brought to you by Vertex. Vertex is a Magento premier partner, providing cloud and on-premise solutions that can be tailored to specific industries for every major line of tax, including sales and use, income, value added, and payroll. Vertex Cloud is the SaaS solution that automates sales and use tax, including calculation and returns. With multiple service levels and flexible pricing models, Vertex Cloud meets the sales and use tax needs for businesses of all sizes, from recognizable brands like Honda, Pepsi, and Verizon to small businesses the world over. Find out more today at vertexsmb.com and be sure to mention MageTalk to get 15 months for the price of 12. Once again, that's vertexsmb.com.
I hear a lot about how this kind of technology is sort of native to the I don't want to say the old way of doing things, but the sort of legacy nature of deployed software, and like the new thing is cloud, right? Cloud can infinitely scale and you'll never have a problem. And maybe that's not so true. I saw a news article last week that Jeffree Star, who is a famous YouTuber in the makeup space, he sort of single-handedly with a YouTube video drop brought down Shopify's entire platform with one product launch on his site. And I think that that's sort of fascinating. That's the that sort of scale is so hard to architect for. I'm curious what makes Queueit different, that you can absorb that scale and sort of, be able to sit in front of some of the world's largest infrastructure and be able to throttle that in such an interesting way. You would think that that would be a challenge for Queueit to be able to overcome. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. I mean, without giving out the secret sauce away, really what we do is, as you know, internet users are being tracked on so many levels, right? So much information being tracked on them that when they're trying to hit a Queueit protected site, we shrink them down to 4 or 5 main criteria for us to service that user and get them to the right place, right? And so what that means is, what's pretty cool about that is that we're actually not being exposed to customer data, and privacy, and we've actually been able to continue to move up into this enterprise space in part because we can pass a security test because we're not being exposed to e-commerce sites, credit card data, user addresses, and all of these sorts of things. So that's really how we do it. We also over the years have learned how to partition the traffic and get it to the distribute it in a way that we can again service such a huge amount. We've had actually if I can put it this way, a global sporting event that we just had 1.4 million website visitors in the same queue. Pretty crazy.
I wonder what that sporting event might have been.
There's a few rings involved.
It's interesting. How funny. There's such a demand now to get things online, and you would think that there's this sort of best practice playbook that people are executing. You hear of it all the time. This, don't introduce friction, don't keep customers waiting. Do you find that people actually stick around and wait in queue, and they is that a more desirable customer experience than having to refresh the website? Tell me a little bit about sort of the value prop of Queueit.
Yeah, exactly. So, it comes down to what they're going to be waiting for. We've studied our traffic, and it does end up in that 80-20 range of who's willing to wait on Black Friday, for instance. That study was. But it's, just last week we had a Instagram influencer drop her first subscription box and attracted over 100,000 people that waited for hours, right? So how strong is the brand, and then also some of the things we really talk about is the psychology of waiting. A wait seems longer when you don't have any information about how long it'll be. You are more likely to wait if there is some social proof, right? If you know how many people in line in front of you are also valuing this product, or experience, you are more likely to escalate in the value you're giving that. And then just a customer service, being on brand when we think of some of the brands we're working with, in terms of knowing that they hopefully will have another engagement with this customer, with this website visitor, where they want to respect their time, give them the right amount of information about making a qualified decision and deciding whether they want to wait, whether it's worth it or not.
I know you work in the Magento space some. What are some other platforms that you support, and what are some other lines of businesses outside of e-commerce that might make sense?
Yeah, so we would like to call ourselves platform agnostic.
Sure.
Have that Magento plugin. Have the Salesforce Commerce Cloud cartridge all ready to go for people on that platform. And have done integrations on all the other ones. Where we see a lot of uptake recently is with Cloudflare CDN and their workers integration. Actually, and getting that our more secure server side integration happening out on the edge. It's a good experience. Really low latency, the sort of thing that people are, and when we tell people about it, and you have to make 2 changes on your Cloudflare setup, it's really easy. So you can actually have our most secure integration in a matter of 15 minutes.
Wow, that's really impressive. Now I'm going to have to use this podcast as sort of data as to why I think we could probably do it faster at Something Digital. Or at least I'll have my customers, turn it around on me. What do you think are sort of new and evolving lines of business that you might be able to take advantage of this? You mentioned an influencer. How are influencers like actually reaching out to their customers, and what platforms are they selling through these days? Like what does that sort of direct nature or audience first nature do to e-commerce in like from a new perspective of like the new way of doing business that's somewhat different to the way that you might have done it 10 years ago on Magento?
Yeah. I think there are a few platforms that have been really picking up on them or meeting them halfway, knowing that, not unlike the Magento community, actually, in that you have this system of system integrators that are really helping these brand builders, right? These business people, helping them do the technical setup. So they're doing that in just a little bit different ways. It's almost like a celebrity's career or a musician's career, in the sense that, however, that SI that you start with on your WordPress and WooCommerce setup might not be the SI you're using even just a couple months down the road, because your follower base can outgrow your tech stack pretty quickly. And so we unfortunately haven't been able to bridge the gap with Shopify on our more secure integration. You can still get JavaScript on a Shopify site, but Shopify also seems to have some sort of program where they are working with influencers who are going to drive big traffic and figure out how to like you highlighted, they actually managed to crash, but they seem to be able to also reallocate capacity to people who might be doing something bigger that day. So that's where we have seen some of that go. But again, also some influencers, what is interesting also is the fraction of their following that actually ends up doing actually buying something from them. It can vary quite greatly. So that also makes for hard forecasting for them and for them to put together the right technology stack to support that.
Yeah, that's sort of this conundrum, right? Is if you're building a business, you want some sort of capability of being able to self-service or deliver, and your choice of platform really governs your ability to do that. More and more we see, if influencers in the traditional sense, like whether they're YouTube or Instagram, they're storytellers, they're content creators. And so it makes sense for them to choose a platform that allow them to extend that, storytelling, content creating into their e-commerce platform. what I find really interesting is the evolution of e-commerce platforms to date are really built more around catalog assortment, pricing, filtering, and search and discovery, and not necessarily around storytelling. And I think that's such a necessary component that needs to evolve in all of the e-commerce platforms, because right now that component of being able to create content that sits next to commerce is really reserved for enterprise capable platforms that no one person can run effectively on their own, regardless of their audience size. And so many of these influencers, Jeffree Star is a really good example. They're so close to their audience, they can create content in a matter of minutes and deliver it to them. And they have that expectation to be able to do that with e-commerce too. And it's not always the case, which I think is, so having solutions that you can deploy quickly, it's wonderful. Being on the right platform in the first place and making sure it's architected the right way to be able to deliver quick to your audience is, a whole other ball of wax. So you mentioned to me in the pre-show that you're a musician. What is your prior life in the musician realm entail? What kind of music did you play?
Geez, I played in a working band, so we played what people paid us to play. I did,
Nice.
I did like to write songs from time to time, but what people will pay for at that point was a little bit different. But I always joke that it was kind of like Phil's karaoke night, because I got to surround myself with some pretty talented musicians. I call myself a guitar player, but I always had a Eddie Van Halen lead guitarist who could just rip it, where I never had to push myself too hard to get that much better than a rhythm guitar face in the front. So, but those days are a little ways behind me now that I've got a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old playing the keys at home. So,
yeah, I fully get that. Yeah. When you're around sometime next, we should put together a little Magento community jam band. That'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, totally.
There's a few folks I know a bunch of folks in our industry that have some musical chops. I'd love to kind of put that together. Where, if people wanted to find out more information about Queueit, where can they reach you, and where can they make sure that they get the right product and right service and get up and running quickly?
Yeah, so Queueit.com. One of the funny things about expanding into the US and having so much of our focus in our customer base here is that word Q is a little bit other than Netflix formerly calling their My List Q. QUEUE-IT.com is the website to go to. And we have a couple of places there. That urgent request button is fun because we've brought people online who have crashed an hour ago. And then for some people, urgent is a month away. So you can, and we have a trial account, a free trial set up there. Other things through the website there that will also provide good case studies and a number of Magento customers highlighted there for you to get a feel of how others are using it, including the team at Jacko, Kicks USA, and Ubeak being one of those.
That's awesome. That's so great. And are you yourself, Phil, are you anywhere on social media where people can reach out to you and tell you how much they love the product?
Yes, I am an avid LinkedIn user and love to communicate with people there. Love to share ideas. Love to follow along with people there. I am on Twitter as well. More of a spectator there, more of how I consume my news, but my name without any vowels. I think I created my account when that was the hip thing to do.
Yeah, that was such a thing. You
sound it out like that, and then there's no debate if Hanson is SON or SEN. It's just SN. But anyway, yeah, there. And if you want more photos of 1 and 3 year olds, you can find me on Instagram with Feel Hands On, FEELHANDSON. So that's the phonetic version of my name. So
I love that. That's I'm so glad that I asked about that. That's my favorite thing. I was already on LinkedIn and Twitter with you. Yeah. We're going to have to figure out the Instagram strategy. I love it so much. Thank you so much, Phil Hanson from Queueit North America. And I'm a fan. I know you will be too. Go check them out. And this is not a sponsored post, I should say. We're not getting paid for this. But I just love what you do so much. And I know it's so necessary, especially if you're considering, a jump from Magento 1 to Magento 2 nowadays, which I think most people are. And they're trying to figure out how they can, work their holiday strategy in there, how they can continue to have that dedicated hosting that they had before. And in the new world, I think this is a great option to consider as you're making that upgrade. But thank you so much. And thanks to Queueit for, reaching out and getting you on the show. I love it.
Yeah. Thanks, Phillip. And thanks to the MageTalk team.
Yeah. Thank you.